I am so excited to be able to have had Jane and Bill and Briston here today, and thank you, Amy, for leading them through just explaining what roles they play here in our community. I don't know if you know this, but last year when we had that conversation, it was like a light went on for us to be able to partner and to see all of that come together. And I have greetings from the bishop and his wife from the tabernacle and the temple over in Trotwood. They wanted to let me know, and don't worry, we're going to get to see them again here soon. But they just again, they are using the truck that we were able to provide for them last year. They are using that in incredible ways, feeding all kinds of people. They actually are taking it now. They've opened up into another church. And so they have two places now that they're using this truck to go pick up food and deliver and set up these big long lines of people coming in and getting food. It's really amazing what's happening over there. So, and because of your generosity, that happened. And when you hear things like this, you hear all of the needs that are in our community, you hear all the stuff that's happening, and it's like, it can be overwhelming, right? I mean, especially now, it seems like we're hit with it even more so with all of the things that have happened over the last year and a half or so. And as we've started thinking about re-engaging as a church and really what can we do, what's our next steps, how are we going to take the time to do that, how important is it for us to do that, we have to really consider the fact that our involvement is going to be big. So I want to ask you a big question here this morning. Why would we get involved? I mean, why would we really get involved with something that is so difficult and hard to deal with, and all the circumstances around it are very hard? It's not like this is an easy task for any of us to be a part of something like this. And actually, we're asking this year a lot more so. I know that Amy was really, in her asking you to take out the church app and fill it out and sign up to serve. But I got to tell you something, that's where we've really got to do it. We've got to really roll up our sleeves and get involved, and we need to basically be the ones that move Briston and the Dorleys. It's really not just them. It's not their homes. But it's their ministries and what they do. And getting them into the right campus as soon as possible so that they don't really miss any days. It ought to go without any days being missed. And that's possible if we all are a part of that. And so I'm going to really encourage you to do it. But I asked the question, why would we get involved? Why would we do these things? I mean, is it because that, it's just the right thing to do? It's the humanitarian thing to do? It's all, it does have those parts that play in that. But I really want to tell you that it really comes down to this. I believe the church should be caught doing good. John and I were talking about this, and you met John earlier if you don't know John. And John and I have been talking about this statement and phrase, and we didn't know where we heard it from. And we found out where we heard it from. A man by the name of Tony Morgan. He was a former pastor, but now helps churches with this. But he had said this quote, that the church should be caught doing good. Because so much of what we hear today, I believe, and that's why we changed what we say around here, that we want to be for our neighbors, because the church has this negative, kind of negative reputation in the world in general at times, and it's because it's been known for what it's against, and we really want to be known for what we're for. And so that's really what Jesus' plan for us was. It was never supposed to be representing this thing without any kind of hope or any kind of love, and really the whole idea, give, serve, and love, all of that is really what should embody the church. It's what should be the church. And the church is not a building. I'm trying to, John and I talk about this too, and John's been good for me. He kind of challenges my words a little bit every once in a while, and I'll say I need to go to the church. But the idea is that really the building is what we meet in. The church is right here. It's us. It's you and me. We're the church, and the church ought to be caught doing good. There's so much that's negative these days. So much that seems to be out there. And quite honestly, as the time progresses and we see the negativity and the divisiveness of what's happening in our culture, we've got to do something to counteract that. And one of the greatest ways we do it is to be caught doing good. Now, I want to take you to the verse that has really been the reason why we do this campaign. It's called Be Rich, the campaign is. But this verse is really the beginning of it. It's really where it kind of states it. It's the theme verse, if you will, of all of it. And it's like this, 1 Timothy 6:18. This was written to a young pastor. Timothy was a young guy, just getting started as a pastor. Paul was his mentor. He was his coach. He got him ready for what was going on. And this is what he said. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. If we were looking at what these principles are all about, what he was trying to tell them, you're going to tell your church, Timothy, tell them that they need to be rich in good deeds, not try to get rich, not if they are rich, then realize what responsibility they have. But the idea was every person could be rich in good deeds, be generous. Because when you're generous doesn't have anything to do with an amount. It has to do with the heart. It has to do with where this comes from. When we give because we're generous, not because we're just fulfilling a thing. And quite honestly, I wouldn't want you to feel guilt-ridden and felt like that was the reason why. And we asked a few weeks ago, we were taking this offering where we're asking everyone to give $39.95. You've got this week up till next Sunday, and that's it. We're cutting it off. Now, we've had some incredible giving already take place. And may I say that as we're doing this, that's an above and beyond offering because we do this kind of thing all year long. And so our church budget that we set up and we plan for and everything happens because of the generosity of generous people in a generous church. And remember, generosity leads to more generosity. And what happens is that generous people make a generous church. And if that's true, this idea of being generous isn't about an amount of money. It isn't about, I've got to have so much to do this. But like the offering we're asking everybody to give is $39.95. It's not even $40, that we're asking everybody to give. Now, you can maybe say, I could give a lot more than that. And some of you say, I can only give a tenth of that. I could only give $3.95 right now. That's all I've got. Listen, if it comes from a generous heart that has an idea of being rich in good deeds because we want to follow the example of a good and generous church that's following Jesus, then that's exactly, it doesn't matter the amount. And then willing to share. And willing to share comes down to, I think this is where our time comes in, because quite honestly, it's going to take us giving up a day. Some of us are going to have to give up a day, maybe a few days, where we might have to give our vehicle over, and we might need to pack that vehicle up. We might have to cancel some things on our agenda, things that we thought was important. Why? Because if we don't do that, who will move them? I know the three of you have some excitement behind it, but if you're left to have to move all those things, that's not going to happen, right? The three of you, it would take weeks probably to do it, and that wouldn't be fair. It would not be fair for us. You know why I know this? Because there are statements that have been made throughout to all the churches back in the day when the Bible was written. And I want to take you to one of the passages, this idea of being generous and being rich in good deeds and to be willing to share. Listen to what Peter had to say about it. So I take you to 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 10, and it says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others. Now, this idea of a gift is kind of the concept that God gives you these supernatural ways to be able to do it. But He also gives you gifts of time. He gives you gifts of the money you have. He gives you gifts of energy, life. Some of you have a truck here. Anybody have a truck? How many of you have a truck? All right, raise your hand really high if you have a truck. All right, you are signed up already. We just had pictures taken of everybody. All right. So the idea, though, is all of that is a gift. All of those things have been given to us. And we're there to do what? We've received these gifts from God. Why? To serve other people, to serve others. As faithful, and this is it, stewards of God's grace in its various forms. The idea is that God's grace doesn't come to us just by one way. God's grace comes to us over and over and over again. The very fact that you even have a truck or that you have clothes on today, which we're all thankful for, is the very fact that God has shown you grace, right? Every one of us, God has given us grace. I know that I stand here today because I have been given God's grace in my life. And that is a form that was given to me. You've been given these. And let me just tell you, the greatest example of that grace was when God the Father sent his Son to die in our place so that we might have forgiveness of sin. That's it. That's grace. None of us deserved that because we had done wrong. We had done it against God. But what did God do? Because of his love and his grace and his mercy, he gave us his Son, he served us, and he loved us. All of those things straight up. So when you see this idea, and you know what a steward is, right? As much as we are stewards of our money and our possessions and all of that, we are also stewards of that grace that's been given to us. So when we have the opportunity and we see people who are in great need, we become stewards of that grace God's given us to pass it on to someone else. Especially those of us, when we know a need and we are right in the middle of it, do you realize that it's given you an opportunity to be a steward of God's grace? You can actually pass that on. So, I say that to make this point. Giving, serving, and loving. And those are the three words that we sum up, we use to kind of encapsulate what Be Rich really is supposed to be about. That's what the campaign is all about. That's why we do this. This is why we join with all of these other churches to do this, because it is a very focused, pointed time of effort where we ask for an offering and we ask you to do projects like filling those boxes and like giving time to actually serve, like at the Spooktacular, or come tomorrow and give your blood. I could really go off on this one, right? Of all this, but all of us have blood in our veins, right? Anybody here without any today? So, you have opportunity. Boy, do I want to talk to you afterwards. But it's so important for us that we are looking for these opportunities. Giving, serving, and loving is how we pass grace on to others. It's our opportunity to be able to do that. Now, Peter goes on in the description, and I want to show you this. It says, if anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. Here's the point. You don't become God. You don't speak on behalf of him, but what you do is when you speak, you're representing what it means to know God. You represent that. So can I park here for just a second and say briefly, all right, I'm just going to park, I'm going to double park. How's that? And just say that every time a word comes out of our mouth or a word comes out of our fingers, you know what I'm talking about, right? When we type a word or we say a word, every one of those, we are representing who God is in our life. Some of you is like, I have a right to do whatever I want. Oh, sure, you do. You have a right to be, basically rebellious against God and turn your back on him, even though he did show you an awful lot of grace. But just remember that when you go to type, okay? I know that's, it seems like a pet peeve of yours, Greg. It is. Okay? Now, moving on. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that, and this is the key part, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. Hear this. Every time we serve, every time we are here representing who God is in our life, we have an opportunity to honor him and worship him with our whole life. That's the whole point. When he says that, think about it. Why do you do this? Why would you speak words like this? Why would you even serve? Why should we be involved? Why should we do this? So that our church looks good in this community? So that we feel good about ourselves? So that we feel like we've contributed a little bit? I'll just tell you, the ultimate reason why we would Be Rich, the ultimate reason why you would give an extra on top of your regular giving, be generous offering toward this to help the projects we talked about, the reason why you would fill 2 boxes or maybe even more and bring them in so children will not only have some practical needs met, but they'll hear the gospel. The reason why you might give an afternoon or a day or maybe even more, allow people to use your vehicle or you use your vehicle and move all kinds of equipment and everything. Why would you give all of the reason why we do any of this Has nothing to do with us at all. It actually doesn't even have anything to do with the people we're serving. It has everything to do with this, that God may be praised through Jesus Christ. That's the reason. This is the reason why we do it. We don't do it for any other reason. In any measure of why we do these things, it's also God is praised. Let me just tell you something. If we do it this way, and people who are far from God, or they're questioning God, they're skeptical about God, if they see this, you might even be here this morning and you're kind of like skeptical yourself. And you might even be saying, is this real? I mean, are they really talking about this? Is this really what's going to happen? Is this really the reason? It better be the reason, because it gives an opportunity to show the grace of God in no better way than this, than to say, we're doing it so He looks awesome. That's why we do it. Now, in a minute, we're gonna sing a song to wrap this up here today, a song of real declaration of our hearts. I want to remind you of a couple things. We're asking you to wrap this up, okay? This is it. We're not going to keep extending it for weeks and weeks and weeks. We're asking you to give whatever offering, however generous you can be about this, that $39.95, whatever it is, but go to the church app. If you don't know how to do that, you can write a check if you want to, whatever, for the amount. However you want to do that. You can stop out there. Anyone out at Next can help you be able to do that. They even have the ways to sign up right there in front of you. Or I'm going to tell you that if you've taken boxes last week, if you still, I think there may be a few left. I'm not real sure, but I don't think so. The point is, you did a great job last week taking all the boxes. That's great. Okay? But they need to be here by next week because Bristol needs them, right? You need yours, right? And we need to get those ready for Operation Christmas Child. And then on top of that, we're asking you to serve. We're asking you to give, serve, and by doing it, you're going to show the love that God's shown you. So I'm going to ask you to sign up. There's places on the Be Rich tab that's on the app, okay? Everybody have the app? If you don't, all you have to do is stop out there. They've even got it up on the screen. You just point at the thing, click, and away you go. If you don't know how to do that right now, then find a teenager. They will help you, okay? It's just how it is, all right? And I can tell you this. One of the things that I believe will happen is that we're going to be caught doing good. Giving, serving, and loving is how we honor God with our whole life. That's what Be Rich is about. That's why we do this. We want to make sure that our God looks amazing to anybody who's looking at us. They don't see us, but they see Him. I want to tell you something. The church ought to be caught doing good, right? Let's be rich.